Hello and welcome to TechNow, the web series for ServiceNow admins, builders, and developers on a wide variety of platform topics. My name is Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Advocate at ServiceNow, and it is my pleasure to bring you another topic in our series, this time about debugging your ServiceNow code. There are times when we need to get into coding in the platform, and this is the episode to help you resolve those issues quickly. We've got a special guest for you today, but first, let's get through the quick intros. I already mentioned my name, so this should be pretty quick. I've been with ServiceNow since 2010, was a customer for a couple of years before that, and I'm creeping up on 40 years in the industry, so it's coming up quick. I'm getting to be an old man. I'm going to start thinking about how I'm going to get off this train, but it's too much fun. So lots of other hobbies and whatnot that you can read on the slide. I'm not going to bore you with that. I am going to turn it over to our next guest, Jeremy Duncan.
Thank you, Papaw Chuck. My name is Jeremy Duncan, platform architect here at ServiceNow. 16 years of experience as an engineer in the enterprise, mostly focused on IT. Did start as a customer around 2011, so pre-Aspen, a ServiceNow customer, and have just fallen in love and been an advocate for the platform since then. Spent some time in the consulting world, and recently, it's been almost 2 years now, here at ServiceNow. Was recently dubbed Certified Master Architect, so spent 6 months. If you got any questions about that program, please feel free to reach out. And just a quick fun fact about myself, I am a reserve police officer, so I do get to take bad guys to jail, or girls, bad girls too, to jail when I'm not working here at ServiceNow or camping with my wife and kids. So enough about me. We'll pass it over to Mr. Barnes.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I'm Andrew Barnes, developer advocate at ServiceNow. I have been with ServiceNow for about 2.5 years now, and I've been in the ecosystem for 7 years. I've been at a couple of customers and was at an implementation partner prior to joining ServiceNow in this role. You can find a lot of my content over at developer.servicenow.com, where we have our blog and our YouTube from there. And one interesting thing in the ServiceNow developer community is I started one of the first developer meetups. And then once joining ServiceNow, I ran the global developer meetup system, which has over 60 ServiceNow developer meetups around the world. Right now, most of them are virtual, but you can also find those on the events page of developer.servicenow.com. Prior to all of my ServiceNow stuff, I was running enterprise application systems for a university, and then prior to that, I taught computer science for a bunch of years because discrete math is fun. And thanks for letting me join you today and talking about ServiceNow debugging.
So we'll move right on over, thank you, Andrew, to our agenda. So Andrew will be wowing us with the demo. Yeah, Andrew's being modest about some of the things that he's done, but I want to just say thank you, Andrew. The community will never be the same thanks to the focus that we've had on developer, the focus we've had on meetups, the developer meetups, the organization that we've seen around that. The baton has been passed in some ways. We've got over 50 developer meetups that I see that are global. I know we've got a lot more than that. But just the last time I counted, and being a leader of our Nashville developer meetup, I'm just grateful for the attention and the care and feeding that goes into that. So thank you. For all you do there for the community. So next up, you might have seen this advertised in the community, LinkedIn, here on TechNow. Breakpoint is a podcast for ServiceNow admins, developers, builders of all skill levels. Join Chuck Tomasi and his special guests each week to discuss the Now platform features, cool apps that folks have built, and so much more. So if you check out that link below, you can sign up or see the past episodes that Chuck and his special guests have had. and knowledge. Let's talk a little bit about that. K21 officially has wrapped, but don't worry. Right? You have access to the content as a registered attendee. You can see that with the link below. It did wrap with a song, or several songs, actually. Chuck led us in a 4-hour karaoke event where he raised over $4,000 for code.org. So a round of applause for Chuck on that, and thank you for all the donations that came in for that great cause. There's still a ton of content available to you as an attendee. You have roughly 6 months to access that content. Don't hold me to that time frame, but get out there, check it out, and stay tuned for K22. I'm hearing sweet whispers of nothing that we might be seeing each other again, right? So look forward to that. And if you're wondering what content is a must-see, that again, I'll mention that link at the bottom. Again, those the content that's there via that link is what our developer advocates, Chuck, Andrew Barnes, and Brad Tilton have curated for your viewing pleasure. So check that out. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over, and I think we're going to have our first poll of the day.
So this poll is how often to use the script debugger or breakpoints. So if you don't know what that is, for example, go ahead and hit NA. But if you do know what it is, let us know how often you use either of those tools, the breakpoints or script debuggers. It could be daily, once a week, once a month. Let us know, because we're interested in how often you use that functionality. And we'll see how that changes over time in the future. All right. Looks like half of the folks don't use it or don't know what it is. So hopefully our session today will potentially change that. But daily, only 10%. So let's see what we can do to potentially, inform you of the script debugger and breakpoints and other debugging things. And with that, I will go ahead and move us right on to our screen share. So let me share my screen. Do we have any questions while I'm doing that, Chuck?
We have one person that said they're interested in an update set tracker. So, Jason, I'm going to refer you to get in contact with Andrew. Probably LinkedIn would be the easiest way. Andrew Barnes on LinkedIn, ServiceNow. There should only be one of them. And he can tell you all about Update Set Tracker. He said he manages over 250 ServiceNow instances. So,
oh, wow. That is quite a number of instances. Yes. Feel free to reach out to me via Twitter or LinkedIn. Absolutely. So
you may also want to look at our December show that Jeremy did. Was it December or was it February, Jeremy, for moving things around your instances?
I'll move it. Yeah, it was episode, I think, 78, and that was last year. Yeah.
Oh, that was last year already.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a while, yeah.
So there are other options to update sets.
Yes.
There are, and I believe episode 75 had Chris on talking about CI/CD.
Yes.
Yeah, we did a live coding happy hour as well, where we talked about moving apps and using latest and greatest in Quebec. So lots of options out there for folks to go check out.
We can take care of you.
There certainly are. So if you can see my screen now, I'm in Agent Workspace, and I'm on the incident table, and I'm going to show you. So when you're debugging in ServiceNow, obviously I can't, immediately just drop into a problem. So I've had to contrive this problem a little bit to walk us through debugging, because doing debugging on demand is a little difficult, because if you don't make a mistake, you don't need to debug very much. So I've introduced a mistake, and we're going to debug that mistake here on the show and walk through some of the tools and capabilities and how I go about debugging on the platform. And we're going to see some newer features like Script Tracer and some of the older features on how to do debugging. But right now I'm in Agent Workspace. I'm going to open a new incident, and I'm going to fill out a couple of values. So I'm going to choose Fred Luddy, because he's my fun test user today. I'm going to set a couple of fields, and here we go. And I'm going to set a problem record. Let's see. this problem record. And before I hit save, I'm going to show you the business rule that I've created. So I've got a story in my backlog. I've created this business rule. So this is a after business rule that's going to check to see if my incident is active and the problem field is not empty. This is going to run on insert or update. And what it's going to do is under advanced in the script area, we can see that it's going to go and grab our problem record. It's going to validate that we have a valid problem record. And then we're going to set a value on that problem record, the contact type, to the same value as we have on our incident subcategory. So this is doing a little data synchronization for me. And so let's see that in operation. So I've got this new incident. And right now, if I open up this problem record, let's take a look at it. We can see, let's see, where is, let's go ahead and do our update, and then we'll see what happens on our problem record. So I'm going to hit save. And now our expectation is that the problem record, a field on the problem record, got updated. And did I not put that field on this form? I was using the regular out-of-box form. Bad me. I have it open right here. Let's take a look. So the contact type was set to email. You see the little has been updated by another user not in this tab, was updated to email because that came from my incident record. So everything looks great, right? Yes, right now everything looks amazing. But if I come back and I'm doing my testing as I built my story, and I come back and I update my incident record again. So let's change the contact to virtual agent. And we're going to add a description. Hello. And we'll hit save. Then we'll notice my subcategory on incident is different. That's bad. Let's go check our problem record. Ooh, and that's synchronized to our problem record. That's not what we wanted. Why did this happen? So we've now seen I'm in a scenario in which I don't know why I have this problem, right? I'm on my incident record and I've made a change and subcategory has changed to a value that doesn't even look like a valid value. And I didn't cause this. So now we have to start our debugging process. So to do that, let's go look at what our options are. So I'm going to return to the normal, developer view of the platform, the main view here, and I'm going to go to diagnostics and just show you some of the options that you have available. So under system diagnostics right here, we've got a whole bunch of options to inspect your ServiceNow instance. Under that, we have debugging. So there's a whole category here called session debugging. And I can hit enable all, or I can go and choose a particular area to do debugging. So I could perhaps, maybe I think it's a business rule, so I could turn on debug business rule. Or I could debug SQL, or let's see, debug security. I don't know what's causing this yet, so I could potentially turn on debug all and see what's happening.
That's going to give you a lot of information.
That is going to give me a lot of information. Absolutely. So in Quebec, there's actually this really cool new feature in Quebec called Script Tracer, which you'll find all the way up the top here of the diagnostics window. Script Tracer.
Hang on, Andrew. We're not seeing that window. There it is.
Yeah, I just opened it. So
okay.
There's the Script Tracer window, which I've just invoked. It's not doing anything yet. And it may be familiar to some of you who are using the script debugger. You remember that poll question we had, are you using the script debugger? So let's try the script debugger first and see if that gets us what we need. So we're going to try that out.
Andrew, does this do client scripts and scripting and UI policies as well?
So the script debugger can debug any script field that is a synchronous operation. So yes to some of those. So yes to those that are synchronous. So for example, a business rule, a before or after business rule, synchronous. A asynchronous business rule, not able to use the script debugger for that. So in order to invoke the script debugger, I'm going to go to my script and I'm going to click the line. So line 5, now I've clicked that. That sets a breakpoint. If you right click on it, you can see to remove breakpoint, add a condition. So I've set a breakpoint. Now what this will do is the next time that I invoke this business rule, it will pause my operation at that point in time. So let's go invoke that. So if we go,
and the pause is just for you on this session. If anyone else is on this instance, they're not impacted.
Absolutely. That is certainly true. Even a different login from me won't be affected as long as it's a different session. So in my script debugger window, you can see I've got this breakpoint that's ready to go right here. And let's go invoke it. So I'm going to hit save in my window. And this should cause, yep. So now we have hit our breakpoint where we set it on line 5. And in this interface, usually the most important area for me is going to be this top right area where I can go inspect the object's values. So I can go take a look at the current glide record, which is my incident record, and see what the values are. And if I scroll down here to subcategory, you'll see that it has already been changed. So what's happening is there's something earlier in the execution than my business rule. If it hadn't changed yet, then what I'd be able to do is step forward and find the operation that's causing this. But unfortunately, since I can now show that it happened before my business rule was invoked, I'm a little bit stuck, right? Because I can't go backward in time from this execution. I can only go forward in time from here where I've put this breakpoint. And let's step forward just so we can see what that looks like. So I can step forward in my execution and it will even show me the next business rule and then the next business rule and so on. And then I can go ahead and hit resume execution to let that thing finish. But I've now shown for sure that the thing that's causing my problem is happening before my business rule is being invoked. So prior to Quebec, one thing that you might know how to approach a problem like this is I might go to the business rule table and even potentially sort it to the incident table business rules and just look to see if there's been a business rule that's been updated recently. Because that could show me some potential places that were likely to be causing my issue. I don't see anything jumping out here. I've got my business rule, and then it's been months since anyone adjusted a business rule. So let's try one more step that I would have done prior to Quebec. So we'll just inspect that script field, and we'll see if subcategory is in here.
One thing I did prior to Quebec is just put in a lot of gs.info statements.
Potentially, that could help me if I could find the business rule that might be causing the issue.
Yeah.
But right now, I have no idea what's causing this issue. So I'm in a bit of a quandary. So I could go to debugger. I've got to spell it right. I could go enable all of the debugging and see what's happening. But in Quebec, I've got a new tool. So let's try that new tool out. And that new tool is in the same window with the session log, and the script debugger is called Script Tracer. So I'm going to start trace, and now any operation that I do in the platform that's synchronous is going to show up all of the logic and business rules that are running synchronously against my transaction. They'll show up here. So let's go see what that looks like. So I'll return to my incident. I will go make another change here. Let's change to walk-in, and let's even, put some description in. Goodbye. And for tracer. So I've changed a few values, and let's even change the assign to, because Fred probably shouldn't solve his own thing. So let's hit save. So let's show you this interface a little bit now that we definitely have a working version here. So I can use a filter. So I can search for particular things like subcategory. Search for a file or field name. I can toggle the business rules on or off. Let's get all of those back. Let's toggle off UI action, toggle it back on. So I have ways that I can narrow this down if I have a lot. I only have 3 here. So let's go check out these 3. I gave the game away a little bit because I told you that it was this one. But let's see how I would have figured that out if this was my first time coming to this window, which is, let's make it stop flashing.
That's a direct question right out of the chat is, if I've got 50 business rules, how do I find the one that's affecting my record or affecting that field?
Absolutely. So if you've got a bunch of them, you start filtering out the tables and field and types that are most likely not causing your issue. So for example, if you've got a bunch of task SLA ones running, that's a very unlikely place to be causing your issue with the subcategory changing. So you can filter these down relatively quickly. What you can see in this window, now that it stopped flashing at me, is in the state box here, I've got a little checkbox that says, show only changed values. And so what this is doing is it will tell me all of the field names and the values that have changed during my transaction. So I've got type, user, value, system, name, and I've got no, I got distracted. That is not even the right one. All right. So we'll show how it should work, which, as you can see with this business rule, is it's showing me all of the values that should be, here's the field and here's the change. You can also see all of the values, but I like to narrow it down to just the ones that have changed. You can go view the script. You can open up the whole script from here. You can view the transaction details, which this is similar to the script debugging window that shows you the transaction details here. And we can go, if this is the thing that's causing it, if, for example, this said subcategory is changing to 1, then we'd know, oh, okay, this is the script that's causing my problem. Unfortunately, I don't actually, I'm not invoking it correctly for some reason. It was, of course, working right before I started. But let's go see what's causing our issue, since we actually know what that is.
So Andrew, just a quick question. Like back in the old days, I can remember watching a particular field. Is there a similar functionalities we're using script tracer and any of the new functionality to where we could narrow it down to a field that's changing that we want to go investigate?
So it won't show you just one field, it'll show you all of them. So right now, there's not a capability to just watch one field in particular. It'll actually show you all of the tables, all of the records that are being affected in your transaction, not just one. Because the thing you're debugging may not be just the one field on the incident form. You may need to see the bigger picture. But that's something that we could potentially add in the future. So here is my script that's causing the problem. And it looks like on the incident table, there's this sync field that's got a property that is sending to a script include that's causing our issue. So this script include is updating a record for me, but I'm passing it the wrong field. So let's go take a look at this property and see what it is. And we'll see that for some reason, the developer put subcategory in this property where it should have been the active field. And so this is what's causing my issue. So if we change this from subcategory to active, and we try and replicate our problem, which is changing subcategory and hitting save, we'll see we're no longer updating subcategory, which is exactly what we wanted. We wanted subcategory not to be adjusted. So now I need to reach out to the developer that adjusted that property, figure out why they did, and figure out what our next step is. So that is script tracer. The next thing that I'd like to show, though, is what if script tracer didn't solve my problem? Like potentially it didn't here. I really wanted it to, but it didn't. The other things in this window are similar to those settings I showed you in the app nav. So I can click settings here and I can select any of those debug options here. So I could, for example, turn on business rules detailed and hit enable. And let's see what happens when I perform the same action, which is updating this incident and changing the subcategory and hitting save. We'll see here all of the business rule details for which business rules ran during that transaction. So let's see if we can look for subcategory here, which we won't be able to find it because we've already turned that off. But what we will be able to do is flag, and we'll see that this one ran. This is one of the things that ran during that transaction, which is potentially one of the things that caused my issue. So there are a lot of different ways to go after debugging, and Script Tracer is just one of those new tools. Again, I'd like to highlight that it is for synchronous operations. So if you have something that's not a synchronous operation or is not running in the same session as the user, you'll have to figure out a way to sort of coerce that to be synchronous. So potentially you could toggle your synchronous rules to run, or your not synchronous rules to run synchronously. But that's one of the ways to use these tools. So that's the script tracer, the script debugger, and the session log. The last thing I'll show you is one of the things that I did a long time ago, and I haven't had to do in a while, but it's still a very useful tactic when I'm looking at business rules. I don't know if you've ever done this, Jeremy or Chuck. Let me turn off the...
No, I've never done a current data update on a before business rule. I've never done that, ever.
So one thing that I will do is I will go to the business rule table. If I'm sure that it's a business rule and I just don't know which one it is, I have done some binary tree sorting here. And for example, I will go, okay, well, there's 28 business rules on the incident table that are active. Let's go turn off 14 of those. And so I'll multi-select half of these, and I will set them defaults.
This is where scoping can be fun. That's assuming everything's in the global scope.
That is true. And I'll turn it off, and then I'll perform my operation. And if it's still causing the same issue, I'll know it's not those 14, and it's in those other 14. So that's another little debugging trick there. Are there any other hints or areas of debugging that you might want to suggest to the other folks other than the tools that I've shown here? I've got one more in my toolbox that I'll show if y'all don't have a suggestion right now.
So
Andrew, as we encourage people to migrate from business rules to flows in a lot of cases, and they are a much better solution for many of the business rules, less scripting, of course. How would you get into that to say, wait a minute, it's not even part of the script, it's out of the scope of that? Where would you go to? I know this gets beyond the topic of how to debug your code, but there may be times when, as people migrate, you go, it's not in code anymore. How would you recognize that?
That's a super excellent question, Chuck. And for example, the script tracer won't currently find that change in a flow right now. You would be able to find it from the record watcher potentially, but the script tracer wouldn't find that. The best way to debug flows is actually in the flow execution. So I've opened up Flow Designer and gone to flow executions. And if I look at created by and narrow it down to the table in the operation or flow that's running, I can open up that execution and inspect what happened during that execution. This is actually one of my favorite areas in the platform is the Flow Designer execution tab, because it brings all of that data that I would have potentially logged somewhere else and surfaces it right here in one interface for me. So I can see here is the trigger for this flow, and it will show me, I can open up that record from here. It'll show me the values, the runtime values of all of those inputs for this trigger. And for all of the actions, I can also see here are the values, the runtime values of all of the things that this update record action we're interacting with during this execution. So it really centralizes all of this stuff that Flow interacted with right here together for me. So this is a great area of the platform. The next thing that I wanted to show, though, was adding a log point. Chuck, I believe you mentioned, well, I will add in some gs.infos and wherever, sprinkle them around to tell me values. And look, we've even got some here in this script include a GS info here, right?
And so what that leads to is it actually makes it harder to go into your system log and find what you're looking for when you've got these sprinkled all over the place, especially if you're, dumping out a stringified JSON object. It's like, all right, what am I looking for in this log? Because it's now so polluted with my app and everybody else's changes with GS info, GS log, GS debug. Everybody's dumping strings out here. I can't find what I'm looking for in this particular case. So I'll go ahead and show them log points. I love this.
Awesome. So as you alluded to, add a log point is right here along with my add breakpoint and conditional breakpoints, which invoke that the script debugger window. Add a log point will perform a similar operation, but for logs. I can, log values here. I can say the current field is and do current dot, and then say field, and get those values of those variables.
How much code can you put in there?
Ooh, that's a good question, Chuck. I don't know. I've put some fairly long log points here. I haven't run into a limit though. Let's get the display value for this guy. And yeah, now I have a log point, which is also visible over in the script debugger tab. Has my log points in a similar way that they do for the breakpoints. So I can see here I've now got a log point in this script include. Super helpful and is only for my session. And so this helps you not have to store logs that are transitory. Like this line here, this doesn't belong in production. I should remove this before I promote it up. But if I use a log point, then it's even easier because that won't move at all when I move this code up. And I can even add these in production. So if you're trying to debug something in production because you can't replicate it in your sub-production, you can add a log point in production and you're not actually modifying the record. So from a change perspective, you're still good to go there. So log points really can help with that debugging in production for those production issues. Add a log point where you throw script tracer in, find the correct script include to work on, and put in a log point where you need it, even in production. So with that, I hope these debugging tools that I've shown off today, script debugger, session log, log points, breakpoints, and script tracer, will help you debug on ServiceNow a little bit better. And I'm going to stop the screen share, and then I believe we'll move into our next poll question.
Yeah, while we do that, you asked for some other suggestions, Andrew. I know we were talking a lot about server-side stuff. So the one other place I go, if I can't find a particular field that I'm looking for or whatever, a couple of things that help me, SNUtils, so I can see the tech names of the fields that I'm looking at, and also sys metadata. I know it's querying a lot of the back end, but sys metadata, digging in and finding a payload like where maybe a 1 was hard-coded, looking at a particular table that way. Another thing to think about is we have a lot of portal devs out there that are debugging portal issues as well. There's code there that you got to think about. I love using my browser tools, so F12. You can see your bangs, you can see stuff that are going on the browser side as well. So lots of other cool tools out there to consider because there's many different places that code is running what's going on behind the scenes. So
yeah, if you want to get more into service portal debugging, there is a video on the ServiceNow, I think it's support or community channel. I can't remember. I keep referring to it because I did the voiceover for it. But it shows you how you can debug widgets and get into .log to, I think on the Mac it's option right click or control right click, and you can see the data schema. It's like, wow, that's handy stuff. We also have one in the chat from John, says console.table or console.log to see your objects as you put that into the client script. Because sometimes client-side debugging can be really challenging.
Absolutely. And along with the browser developer tools, there's also some really excellent plugins out there. I know you mentioned SNUtils, but when you're doing service portal debugging, there's some great web developer plugins around Angular and Bootstrap to debug your service portal that I find handy as well. So we've got a poll up. So after watching this session, are you likely to use the debugging tools? So hopefully this has inspired you a little bit to use more of the debugging tools and get you familiar with some of them that you may not be regularly using. So let us know in the poll here. While we're doing that, do we have any questions?
We've got one that says, Sean says, are there any specific roles associated with granting the ability to do debugging?
Ooh, excellent question.
Aside from admin.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure the answer to that one. So admin certainly has that, but we'll have to get back to that. So we will answer that one offline because I'm not sure. Are we ready to take a look at our
poll?
How
are we doing on that poll? Yes, I'm dying of curiosity.
Let's take a look. Somewhat increased, about the same, and greatly increased. Wow, that's fantastic. Nice. So 46% will somewhat increase and 44% greatly increased. So that sounds like this was helpful to you, which I'm super excited that you found this helpful today. So with that, let us move into our top takeaways. So for me, the top takeaways from today's session are use breakpoints. So when you know which business rule or script include has an area that you want to inspect the values, throw in a breakpoint, then step forward and you can see all those values. That will take you into the script debugger, which will show you all of those breakpoints, allow you to see the values of all of those records at that time, step forward in time. You can also see all of the log points there in the script debugger area. So super valuable tool there. In the same window with the script debugger, if you're in Quebec or forward, is Script Tracer. Now, Script Tracer, again, and breakpoints only work on that synchronous code, but when it is something synchronous, those are really powerful tools, and there's nothing licensing related to using any of the things that we've shown today. So Script Tracer, script debugging, log points, breakpoints, those are all core platform foundation items, and you can use them today if you're in a Quebec instance. And if you're not in a Quebec instance, the only thing you'll be missing out on is Script Tracer, unless you're, running Berlin, which no one is anymore. So thank you for following along. And now I'll hand it back to Chuck.
All right, just want to give you a real quick promo. We do have this as a monthly series. TechNow comes out once a month, and our next month episode is going to be on DevOps. We mentioned that Chris Faulkner was on a little while ago about CI/CD. I think that was March of 2020. We're going to be visiting that at a higher level with Charn Lin. He is one of our product managers around the whole DevOps stuff. This really tells the story and where we are on this journey. We are by no means done implementing DevOps to help improve and make it easier for you to get your changes from dev to production as quickly and as easily as possible with the highest quality. So I invite you to look for that. We do have a registration link. If for those of you that are watching right now, in the resources panel, you should have a registration link for the next episode, the June 29th episode of TechNow. So register there. If not, we will have that on the community shortly after we post this. Some other resources I mentioned, the community, and I forgot to mention, in the true spirit of community, we really have a great Q&A session going on here. John has told us that the role script_debugger is used to run the script debugger. That's almost too logical for us. But I want to point you at some of these resources as well. It should have been. Yeah, you'd think. The developer portal, free personal developer instance. You can try all this stuff out in a risk-free environment. All the API docs for scripting. So if you are into scripting, great place to go. A lot of information over there, blogs and newsletter, great stuff. And we are still slamming these out once a month. We've been doing this since 2013. If you want to know where all the other ones are, we mentioned Chris Faulkner. We mentioned Jeremy's session. We mentioned episode 75. Go over to devlink.sn/technow. It will take you to that master index of every single TechNow episode with the embedded video and the discussions that have been going on. If we didn't get your question answered, understand that we are a bit limited on time here. We will answer it offline, and you will get an email with the results, where to go, posted to the community, right to your question. So with that, I think we've just got a few minutes left for Q&A. What have we got, Jeremy, while I was talking?
Yeah, so we had some questions about instance-wide searching. My response back is, sys metadata is a good option for broad stroke searching. Keep in mind within Studio, your Studio IDE, you've got searching capabilities there, which will search your application that you're in. It's not a great global option necessarily, but it's there for you. Definitely multiple options for global searches out of the box. It's just finding the one that works for you that you kind of get used to, right? There was also mention of a individual field, as we mentioned before, a suggestion of field level tracing in the future. So thank you all for your suggestions as well as your questions.
So
let's see here.
There's another one about searching a given string across the entire instance. So Jeremy, you mentioned the code search tool in Studio for a given application. But there's a checkbox in that interface that will search all applications.
So okay.
You can use that interface to search for any code in nearly any script box in the platform, right there from in Studio in the top right, code search. Another question that I saw come through was asking about the Logpoints and how to enable that. And I did not cover that, which I will do right now, which there is a system property to control Logpoints, and by default, that system property is off. So you'll need to go to your system properties and adjust that. You'll have to adjust that property, and I am going to not remember the name of that system property, but it's got log_point in the name. So if you just go to your system properties and search, you will find it. And hopefully I can come up with it here shortly, which is Logpoints. And it is glide.debug.log_point. And you set that true to be able to enable that log point when you're right-clicking in the gutter of your script box.
All right. I think we got most of them. We are out of time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Don't forget, there's more content. If you go over to the developer portal at developer.servicenow.com, you will get it all. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, the ServiceNow Developer Program YouTube channel. You get notifications when we do our live streams. There are several of them. And, of course, Breakpoint podcast. So enough of the commercials. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Andrew, for all of the wonderful information, demonstration, and we will talk to you again real soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.